Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSat Network. Friend, as you know, we are having discussion on media ethics. Yesterday we discussed about the principle on which the media ethics is based, and also what one should do at the conflict of human ethics and journalistic ethics. Today we will focus more about the journalistic ethics and our standard practices. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in studio the same resource person, Dr. Anand Pradhan. He is Associate Professor at IIMC New Delhi, and his name and face are familiar to all of you. So without taking much time, I invite him for the EduSat lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Amarendra ji, and very good afternoon to all my viewers. Yesterday, as you all remember, we have discussed those ethical principles on which the journalistic ethics are basically based. They are the foundations of the journalistic ethics. But today we will discuss more about some of the important journalistic ethics. And as you remember, yesterday we discussed about what is journalistic ethics. So I'm just recapping few points before coming to the main highlights of today's discussion. As you all know, journalistic ethics are basically ethics and standards include principles of ethics and of good practice to address the specific challenges faced by professional journalists. These principles are also known to journalists as their professional code of ethics. So which means these journalistic ethics and standard practices are basically those principles which we expect from our journalists to follow. What are those journalistic principles and ethics? We will discuss one by one, but let us also remember that why these journalistic ethics matter. It enhances credibility, reliability and reputation of journalists and their news organization. It also ensures freedom with responsibility. It also gives journalists and their news organization professional satisfaction, and as well as it also limits governmental intervention. So we have discussed about why journalistic ethics are so important and why all journalists and their news organization should follow these journalistic ethics. Now I would like to discuss that we have discussed yesterday that what are those journalistic ethics. In those journalistic ethics, the main journalistic ethics are basically truth and accuracy, objectivity, impartiality and fairness, serving public interest, working for greater common good, personal honesty and integrity, respect for individual privacy, independence from vested interest, respect for law and universal human values, and finally moral decency and good taste. So these are few of the journalistic ethics which we expect from our journalists and news organization to follow. Also, as we have discussed, all these ethical principles are basically derived from the ethics or the ethical principles. Today I would like to focus my discussion more on some of the important journalistic ethics. And what are those journalistic ethics? Let us first begin our discussion with objectivity. As you all know, objectivity is one of the most important journalistic ethics which I believe is every journalist should follow. But also objectivity is one of that journalistic ethics which is most abused, or sometimes people don't understand what it means. That is why so many journalists and editors and writers and intellectuals believe that objectivity is not possible. They believe that objectivity is basically myth, because it's very difficult for any journalist or writer or editor to be independent from any bias or prejudice or ideology, or in certain cases they may take sides. So it's very difficult to follow objectivity while you are reporting or while you are writing. That is why many journalists and editors believe that basically objectivity is a myth. And that is why in US some time back they have organized a survey among the editors of leading newspapers, and in those surveys they have asked their editors to define the word objectivity, what they understand by this term objectivity. And you will surprised to know that almost from the 50 editors, there were 28 definition of objectivity. So it shows that how even the journalists and editors are confused about the definition and meaning of objectivity. So objectivity is basically very important but also very abused term. So let us first understand what it means. Basically, originally, it was not the journalist who was imagined to be objective, it was his or her method. It's very important to understand what it means. Actually, when we say objectivity, it is not that journalist should be objective. It is basically when he or she is reporting, his or her method should be objective. He should follow or he can believe in certain ideology. But when he is reporting, his method should be objective. As you know, objectivity is basically a scientific method. So when you are reporting certain things, you must follow objectivity, which means your method should be objective, which means in a way that you should ensure certain things while reporting an issue or incident or a story. And how to ensure objectivity in your reporting? There are few things you have to follow. The first and foremost is unequivocal separation between news and opinion. What it means? It means that while you are reporting a news story, you should not express your opinion in your news story. If you want to express your opinion, there is a separate space in newspapers on editorial page. You can express your opinion by giving your name. But while you are reporting a story, simple, you have to just report factually. You should not include your views or your organization's view. Secondly, and it's very important, in fact many people believe in journalism there should be a clear-cut differentiation, clear-cut separation wall between news and opinion. You should not include opinion in news, and while you are writing your opinion, you can express your opinion, but there should be a space mentioned for your opinion where you can express your opinion. Second thing about ensuring objectivity is unequivocal separation between news and advertisement. I think it's very important, particularly in current scenario where we are, whole nation in fact is discussing about the menace of paid news. What is this paid news? It's basically someone has paid for a news story which is published in a newspaper or a television channel. It is broadcasted on television channel as a news, but it is not really news. Someone has paid for it, and that is called paid news. Why it is so important? It is important that as a viewers, as a readers, or as a listeners, what I expect from my radio station or from my newspaper or from my television channel. I expect from my news channel or from my newspaper objective reporting, which means that a journalist should report independently, without any favor, without any influence. But if someone is writing a story as a news story, and I believe this is a correct, accurate story, but in fact it was paid by someone and it is written in a manner which shows that some kind of inclination or favor to that person who has paid for that story, or company that has paid for that story. It is in fact one of the most criminal acts in journalism. That is why whole nation, in fact in parliament it was discussed. It was discussed in the Press Council of India and many other newspapers. So it's very important, and recently even the Election Commission has issued a very clear-cut guideline, and in fact they have now, from the Bihar election, they have started following newspapers and television channels whether they are still carrying the paid news or not. So I think the second most important thing to ensure objectivity in your reporting is to separate news from advertisement. In fact, long back it was said that there should be a separation wall, a wall like a wall like, as we know, a wall between church and state. The same type of wall must be there between news and advertisement. So there should be a clear-cut space for advertisement, while you are writing or reporting a story, it should be published on news space. So there should not be any mixing of these two things. The third thing is, when you are writing a story or reporting a story, competing point of view are balanced and fairly characterized and reported to ensure objectivity in your reporting. So whenever you are reporting a issue or incident or a story, there may be many competing views. One side, two sides, three sides. So there may be many sides. There may be many stakeholders in a story. So when you are reporting a story, you must give proper and appropriate space to all stakeholders or all sides fairly and in a balanced manner according to their newsworthiness. You should not take sides, or you should not highlight one side and undermine one side. So it is very important to ensure objectivity in a way that it should not appear that you are taking any side. Some of the other things while ensuring objectivity is, reporter and journalist must avoid conflict of interest, and we will discuss about the conflict of interest in detail later on, which means incentive to report a story with a given slant. So you should not report any story with a given slant or with some kind of influence. It includes not taking bribes and not reporting on stories that affect the reporter's personal, economic and political interest. So suppose I would like to explain this point, conflict of interest. Suppose, and nowadays it's a very serious issue because recently SEBI has issued a mandatory guidelines. As you know, SEBI issued a guideline about when, as a business journalist, suppose if you have shares of a company, you own shares of that company on a channel or in a newspaper, you are writing a story about that company. Because you are already holding shares of that company, which means you are one of the owner of that company. In a way, you are not main owner. Of course, you may have very limited number of shares, but even if you are holding some shares of that company, and if you are writing a story about that company, it may influence, not sometimes very openly, but in a very subtle manner, it may influence your judgment or your reporting style. It may show some kind of slant. So whenever you are reporting such stories, you must disclose to your audiences that you own some shares of this company, so that they should know that while you are reporting on that issue or a company or about that company, it may be influenced by your owning the shares of that company. So recently SEBI has issued guidelines to all news channels and newspapers and journalists that whenever they should report any story about a company, if in that company a newspaper company holds some share, it should be disclosed. If journalists hold some share, they should disclose their personal interest, which means which clearly shows that there is clearly a conflict of interest. But we will discuss later about this subject. Third thing is persons who are subject of adverse news stories are allowed a reasonable opportunity to respond to the adverse information before the story is published or broadcast. To ensure objectivity in your reporting, it is expected from journalists that if you are writing a story or reporting about an incident or suppose a company or a person or an organization, and in that story there are some adverse reports about that person or a company or organization, in that case you must give sufficient opportunity to that person or a company or that organization to explain his or her side, which means allowing enough opportunity to that person or a company or organization to explain his side of the story, which means it should not be one-sided story, and particularly if it is damaging a story, it is going to damage the reputation of that person or that company or organization. You must allow that person to explain his or her side. Finally, interference with reporting by any entity, including censorship, conflict of interest, must be disclosed. As we have already discussed, in certain situation, if you have any conflict of interest, there may be sometimes conflict of interest. You cannot avoid conflict of interest. Best thing is avoid the conflict of interest. But if you are not avoiding that conflict of interest, you must disclose that conflict of interest to your audiences or your readers, listeners and viewers. By this way, you can ensure objectivity in your methods, not about your personal belief or ideas or ideology. Now we will discuss another important issues related to sources. As you all know, sources are basically bread and butter of any journalist. Our journalism or the journalism of any journalist and news organization is basically dependent on the sources. They provide information to us. They provide opinion on different issues. So sources are very important, and how to deal with sources is one of the important issue in journalism ethics. So let us discuss some of the key points related to how to deal with sources. The first and most important thing about dealing with sources is confidentiality of anonymous sources. You must maintain confidentiality, or you must protect the identity of anonymous sources. As you know, all journalists, because of the many reasons, they use terms like this: highly placed sources, confidential sources in their reporting. Because sometimes it happens that your source may not like to disclose his or her name. Due to there may be many reasons. There may be reasons because they may think that if their name or identity is disclosed in the story, they may face a reprisal from their bosses, maybe the powerful people, maybe the government, or maybe the sometimes other authorities. So in those cases, those sources tell you that you should not disclose my identity. If you have promised, that is journalism ethics number one. If you have promised your sources that you will maintain the anonymity of your source, then you should protect your identity of that source. You should not name the source identity in your story, or if someone demands from you that you should disclose the name of your source, you should not disclose. You must protect the identity of that person or your source. But remember, in certain cases, if a court asks you in good faith, then you have to disclose the identity of your source. But the golden rule of journalism or reporting is, and it's ethical also, that you should protect the identity and anonymity of your anonymous sources if you have promised to your sources that you will maintain that anonymity. But the second important thing, which is, you may think that it's contradictory, but it's important to understand, that always avoid anonymous sources. While I am saying on the one hand that you should protect the anonymity or your sources, if your source has told you that you should protect my identity, you must protect that. But on the other hand, I am saying that you should not use anonymous sources at all. In certain cases, because why I am saying this, it's very important for good journalism, for better journalism, it's important not to use anonymous sources, because when you use anonymous sources like highly placed sources or confidential sources, it decreases the credibility of your story, because nobody is claiming the responsibility of that information. It is you who is saying this. So it's always important, if you persuade your sources to disclose or give their name with the story. Whenever you use the source with their name, it gives credibility to your story, your reporting. And why I am saying that, in recent times there are numerous cases where journalists, because they were using anonymous sources, or the sources where they were protecting the identity of their sources, they created a lot of problem to journalists. I will give you one case study which is related to a very famous news magazine, Newsweek. A few years back, Newsweek magazine, as you know, it's a very prestigious magazine after Time and Economist magazine. It's an international magazine. In Newsweek, their journalist published a small one-column story in their regular column, Periscope. And in that story, they have said that, and you remember, if you remember that story, which was very highlighted all over the world, it was simply one column story in a news magazine called Newsweek, and the story was, and they have used the anonymous sources. They said that in that story, according to Pentagon sources, and you know the Pentagon is the Ministry of Defense in United States, so they quoted the Pentagon sources saying that in Guantanamo jail, where America or the United States is keeping their some of the detainees, terrorists, or the so-called terrorists in Guantanamo jail, where they according to that report, where they have used this Pentagon sources, according to that report, to demoralize the detainees, terrorist detainees, they thrown the copies of Quran in toilet. It was a very famous story at that time. When this story was published in Newsweek magazine, there were great uproar all over the Middle East, and particularly from Middle East to Indonesia. In all Muslim countries, people came on the streets. Governments has a tough time to control the mob, and in some places police has to open fire, and in those firing and violence, dozens of people killed after the publication of this story. Ultimately, what happened, Bush administration, at that time the President George Bush, his administration immediately condemned the story. They denied the story, that nothing such incident has happened there. And in fact, even the Newsweek magazine, because of the pressure from the Bush administration, they have to express or a tender apology to the people, and also they have taken back the story, because nobody was ready to take the responsibility of that information. Even the Pentagon denied that report, and it was only journalists who was left to defend that story. So when you are using anonymous sources, you must ensure that it, in certain cases, only where you believe, that is the golden rule. Whenever you believe that if you are not going to use anonymous sources, you will lose very, very important story you should use anonymous sources. Otherwise, it is good journalism, always persuade your sources to give their identity or name with the story. It enhances the credibility of your story. So that is why I am saying you should avoid anonymous sources. The third thing related to sources is accurate attribution of statements made by individuals or others. Whenever you are using sources, always accurately attribute statements made by individuals and others. It's very important whenever, because any source, when you approach to any source for interview or for information, they believe that as a objective, as a accurate and impartial and balanced journalism, as a fair journalist, you will accurately quote your sources. But if you are not quoting your sources accurately or distorting their statements, it always not good for your journalism. In fact, it is not ethical also. And because of that, I would like to show you here a very interesting video where it is from India, and I think this is a very interesting video. You would see where a news organization used a source where they have used this source in a way which was in fact very problematic, and it was created a lot of uproar, and finally the News Broadcaster Association has to take up this case. So here is a video I would like to show you.
है मुंबई पर हुए हमले में 10 नहीं 23 आतंकवादी थे। क्या ये फरहाना अली सही कह रही है? क्या इसके पाकिस्तानी सूत्र सही हैं? क्या सच में 23 आतंकवादी भारत आए थे? सुनिए क्या कहती हैं फरहाना। कैसे वो 23 आतंकवादियों की खबर अमेरिका में दे रही हैं।
मुझे लगता है उनकी संख्या और ज्यादा थी। मुझे अपने सूत्रों से पता चला है कि मुंबई हमलों में कम से कम 23 आतंकी भारत आए थे और मुझे ये खबर पाकिस्तान से मिली है।
सुना आपने, फरहाना ने साफ साफ कहा वो आतंकवादी 10 नहीं 23 थे। 9 मारे गए, 1 पकड़ा गया, तो फिर बाकी बचे 13 कहाँ गए? वो 13 कहाँ छिप गए? फरहाना भी इसी सवाल का जवाब ढूंढ रही हैं। अगर उनके सूत्र सही हैं तो वो भी जानने में लगी हैं बाकी के 13 चुप कहां बैठे हैं। फरहाना के पाकिस्तान में बैठे सूत्रों से मिली खबर कहती है कि वो 23 आतंकवादी बहुत सारा गोला बारूद लेकर भारत में पहुंचे थे। उनके पास AK-47 और ग्रेनेड भी थे। तो क्या बाकी 13 आतंकवादियों के पास ये AK-47 अब भी हैं? क्या ये आतंकवादी गोला बारूद के साथ कहीं छिपे हुए हैं? ये सवाल बड़े हैं और इनका जवाब फरहाना के पास नहीं है। CIA की पुरानी एजेंट फरहाना तो और बड़ी चेतावनी दे रही हैं। अमेरिकी सरकार के काउंटर टेररिज्म और मिलिट्री ऑफिशियल्स के सामने बोलते हुए फरहाना ने कहा कि भारत को कुछ बड़े हमलों के लिए तैयार रहना चाहिए।
अगर ये बात सही है तो अचंभे वाली बात ये है कि अब तक हमने और आतंकी हमले क्यों नहीं देखे? कि आतंकवादी डर गए हैं या अभी छुपकर किसी बड़े मौके की तलाश कर रहे हैं? मुझे लगता है भारत सरकार को अब तैयार हो जाना चाहिए। एक बड़े आतंकवादी हमले को झेलने के लिए फिर तैयार होना होगा भारत सरकार को।
अमेरिका की ये पुरानी जासूस अंदेशा जता रही है कि हो सकता है ये आतंकवादी अब भी भारत में हो। इसी कॉन्फ्रेंस में एक अमेरिकी अफसर ने कहा मुमकिन है फर्जी नाम पते के साथ आतंकवादी कहीं रह रहे हों। हो सकता है वो वेस्टर्न कपड़े पहनकर घूम रहे हों। मुमकिन है वो अपनी दाढ़ी कटा चुके हों। क्या हमारी सुरक्षा एजेंसियों ने पुरानी CIA एजेंट की बात सुन ली है? क्या सच में 23 आतंकवादी आए थे? अगर इस पुरानी जासूस के सूत्र सही हैं तो बाकी 13 को भी जल्दी ढूंढना होगा।
You have already seen this news clip from a leading Indian channel where they have claimed that Farhana Ali, the source, was a CIA spy. But the fact was, she was never CIA spy. She was basically a strategic affairs expert working in Washington. She said something there in press conference and while interacting with some of the journalists there, and that interview was basically conducted by the Reuters press. But here in this channel, they were not accurately attributing Farhan Ali. Secondly, they were saying that she was the CIA spy, which is not also accurate. And what she said to Reuters, they completely distorted the facts. So when Farhana Ali approached the News Broadcaster Association with her complaint, the News Broadcasters Association sent that complaint to Justice J.S. Verma, retired Supreme Court Chief Justice, to see the issue and decide whether this was a transgression or this was ethical violation of the code of conduct of News Broadcaster Association. And after issuing notices to that channel and also some other journalists about this issue, what came to light that this was a completely fabricated story where they have distorted what Farhana Ali said, and Justice Verma came to conclusion that this is not an accurate story, this is not ethical story, and so he in his order he said that this channel should apologize to Farhana Ali. They should express that apology on television channel at least 13 times in a day, and also they said that every time you show this on your ticker for at least 3 minutes continuously, and they also fined 1 lakh rupees to that channel for showing this type of a story on new channel. So this shows clearly what in such situation when you are dealing with sources, it's also important to understand when you are dealing with sources, you must also see whether when you are using your sources, you must cross-check and verify your sources. I would come to that issue, but before that, while you're dealing with sources, it's important to know plagiarism is strongly stigmatized and in many cases illegal, which means whenever you are using sources, and sometimes, as you know, as a journalist, we research, we take so many information from different sources, like sometimes you may use certain part of quote or certain information from a book, or maybe from a newspaper, or maybe sometimes a magazine, or from sometimes, or many a times nowadays, from the internet website. But whenever you are lifting some of the material from a book or a news magazine or a newspaper or internet website, you must quote your source. You should not plagiarize. You should not copy that material by your own name, because it is very much stigmatized and it will ruin your whole career. And I will give you one case study of India, which is very famous one, where in one of the most leading newspaper of Delhi, the top newspaper of this capital city, where the chief editor of that newspaper, who was writing a column on every Sunday in that newspaper, in that column, in 1 week, I think it is almost 7-8 years back, whatever he has written, it was completely lifted from the another newspaper published from London, the Times, and it was fully copied and it was copied and pasted in the newspaper which was published from Delhi. And what happened, you know? Because in these times of internet, you can immediately identify such plagiarism by just copying all those things in your Google search, and they will show you from where you have lifted that story. And because when the editor was caught, and the chief editor was caught plagiarizing material from a foreign newspaper, and what happened? He has to resign from the newspaper, and his whole career was finished. No newspaper or news organization offered job to him in future, and his journalistic career was almost ruined. So even in the recent years, there were instances where some of the newspapers used some graphs or some photographs from internet and used in their newspapers, and their copying was caught, and some of the newspapers fired their newspaper journalists from the job. So while you are using such material, and it's not wrong, you can use that material, but you always honestly and accurately mention the source of your information. Only then you can ensure that you are not plagiarizing any information from anywhere, and it is, in certain cases, it is illegal also, because you are violating the copyright law. So you should be very careful while using such sources. The third thing is, never depend on one source and always verify. Whenever you are using sources, always verify. Never depend on any source. Particularly when you are writing a story which is a controversial story, you should not depend on one person. You must cross-check and verify whatever information you have got from that person. And I will show you another video clip here where a news organization like BBC, which is very famous one, and BBC, they have their own style book, they have their own code of conduct, and in BBC code of conduct they have this golden rule for journalists that never use any information, and particularly controversial information, important information, from one source. Always cross-check every information from at least 2 or 3 sources. But even organization like BBC, which is many people believe is very credible news organization, what they have done, I would like to show you that video. But before showing that video, I will give you a brief introduction of that issue. What happened, you all know about Bhopal gas disaster. And Bhopal gas disaster, you know, people are still demanding compensation, and they are also demanding so many things from the company which they believe is responsible for Bhopal gas disaster, that is Union Carbide. But now the Union Carbide is acquired by another leading multinational company, Dow Chemicals, which is basically a US company. So some of the NGO people who are demanding compensation and criminal investigation against that company, what they have done, they have used a trap, and in that trap they have called BBC television that I am calling from Dow Chemicals, and I am a spokesperson of the Dow Chemicals, and on the anniversary of Bhopal gas tragedy, we would like to announce some very important announcement. And that announcement was, they told the BBC editor that we are going to announce 12 billion compensation to Bhopal gas victims. Of course, it was a very big story. So what BBC has done, they immediately sent a camera team to that spokesperson, but that spokesperson was not genuine. He was a fake spokesperson. He belonged to a new NGO who was fighting against Dow Chemicals. So when BBC sent that camera team, and he invited that spokesperson to their Paris studio, and they interviewed him, and they broadcasted that story live and also with breaking news. So I would show you what this kind of stories, or this kind of not cross-checking and verifying the spokesperson or your source who is announcing something very big and something very controversial, and also depending on one source, what it may do to your credibility. So let us see this video.
Now is Jude Finisterra. He's a spokesman for Dow Chemicals, which took over Union Carbide. Good morning to you. A day of commemoration in Bhopal. Do you now accept responsibility for what happened?
Steve, yes. Today is a great day for all of us at Dow, and I think for millions of people around the world as well. It's 20 years since the disaster, and today I'm very very happy to announce that for the first time Dow is accepting full responsibility for the Bhopal catastrophe. We have a $12 billion plan to finally, at long last, fully compensate the victims, including the 120,000 who may need medical care for their entire lives, and to fully and swiftly remediate the Bhopal plant site. Now, when we acquired Union Carbide 3 years ago, we knew what we were getting, and it's worth $12 billion. $12 billion. We have resolved to liquidate Union Carbide, this nightmare for the world and this headache for Dow, and use the $12 billion to provide more than $500 per victim, which is all that they've seen, a maximum of just about $500 per victim. It is not plenty good for an Indian, as one of our spokespersons unfortunately said a couple of years ago. In fact, it pays for 1 year of medical care. We will adequately compensate the victims. Furthermore, we will perform a full and complete remediation of the Bhopal site, which, as you mentioned, has not been cleaned up. When Union Carbide abandoned the site 20 years ago, or 16 years ago, they left tons of toxic waste, which the site continues to be used as a playground by children. Water continues to be drunk from the groundwater underneath. It's a mess, Steve. And
it's a mess, certainly, Jude. That's good news that you have finally accepted responsibility. Some people would say too late. It's 3 years,
Yes.
almost 4 years on. How soon is your money going to make a difference to the people in Bhopal?
Well, as soon as we can get it to them, Steve. We've begun the process of liquidating Union Carbide. This is, as you mentioned, late, but it's the only thing we can do. When we acquired Union Carbide, we did settle their liabilities in the United States immediately. And we are now, 3 years later, prepared to do the same in India. We should have done it 3 years ago. We are doing it now. I would say that it's better late than never. And I would also like to say that this is no small matter, Steve. This is the first time in history that a publicly owned company of anything near the size of Dow has performed an action which is significantly against its bottom line simply because it's the right thing to do. And our shareholders may take a bit of a hit, Steve, but I think that if they're anything like me, they will be ecstatic to be part of such a historic occasion of doing right by those that we've wronged.
And does this mean you will also cooperate in any future legal actions in India or the USA?
Absolutely.
Was the video I was showing you about where even the BBC, because it's a 5-minute video, so I don't want to show whole video, about how even the news organization like BBC committed a very serious mistake, not verifying the genuineness of the spokesperson who is announcing such a big announcement or the information, where he has claimed, the Jude Finisterra, who is a fake spokesperson for the Dow Chemicals, where he announced that a $12 billion compensation his company is going to offer to the Bhopal gas victims. And what happened, the consequence of this report was, because when the BBC started broadcasting this story live and as a breaking news, immediately the share prices of Dow Chemicals started falling. In fact, within few hours, Dow Chemicals lost $2 billion in share market because of this, only this story. So understand what a simple news story can do, where you are not verifying or cross-checking the information what you are giving to your audiences. So this particular story shows that whenever you go for any reporting or doing certain things, you must follow certain norms, particularly when you are dealing with sources. Now, I would like to also discuss the last thing related to sources is never pay or accept any gift, bribe or favors from your sources. As a journalist, you should not either pay for any information or get paid for any information. In both ways, it is not ethical. Now, about accuracy. The whole credibility of any news organization or journalist depends on the accuracy. And it is basically the essence of journalism is a discipline of verification. So whenever as a journalist you are working as a reporter, you must verify everything, and only that way you can ensure accuracy. What it means, how you can ensure accuracy in your reporting. Why it is important? It is important because it separates journalism from fiction or propaganda. You know, in fiction you can imagine so many things, but while you are reporting or you are writing a news story, it should not be a fiction. It should not be a propaganda. It should be clearly verified, accurate information, objective information, balanced information. And how you can ensure accuracy in your reporting? There are few tips I would like to share with you, and those are the ethical tips you must follow. Never add anything that was not there. So while you are reporting anything, never add anything that was not there. Never deceive the audience. It's again very important. If you are distorting anything, if you are saying something which was not there, in fact which means you are deceiving your audience. As we have also shown you a story related to Farhana Ali, where the channel in fact deceived their audiences. What Farhana Ali has not said, and they were saying that Farhana Ali said this, and Farhana Ali was the spy of CIA. Here, if you are doing this, you are deceiving your audiences. Be transparent as possible about your methods and motives. So while as a journalist you are reporting, your methodology must be very transparent. Rely on your own original reporting. You should not depend on other channels, what other channels are saying, what other newspapers are saying, what people are saying, what rumors are saying. Whatever you have gathered the information, you always rely on your original reporting. That is how you can ensure accuracy in your reporting. How to verify information? There are few techniques. The number one technique is skeptical reporting. What we call is skeptical reporting, which means verifying and checking a story line by line, statement by statement, editing the assertion in the stories as well as the fact. So whenever you are reporting or writing, or as an editor you are checking a story of your reporter, you must ensure that you should check the story of your reporter line by line, every statement by every statement, and you should also check all facts, every assertion in the report, to ensure accuracy in the reporting. Also, there is a golden rule: events with single eyewitness are reported with attribution. Whenever you are reporting about an incident where only one eyewitness was there, you must attribute that information to that person or the source. Events with two or more independent eyewitnesses may be reported as facts. So if you have more eyewitnesses who are saying same thing, and if those eyewitnesses are independent, then you can report as facts. There you can not use the names or identify your sources. All controversial facts are reported with attribution. Whenever you are reporting any controversial fact, you must report with attribution, which means you must quote the source. Then there are few things related to accuracy checklist. I would just like to list all those accuracy checklists. Is the lead sufficiently supported? So whatever you have written in intro is sufficiently supported, attributed. Has someone double checked the facts on your editorial desk, whether he has checked every fact? Is the background material required to understand the story is complete? Are all the stakeholders in the story identified, and have representatives from all the sides been contacted and given a chance to talk? Does the story pick the sides or make subtle value judgment? You have to ensure that your story should not take sides. Is anything missing in the story? You must ensure that if there is any missing link, you must try to gather that information and use in that story. or are all the quotes accurate and properly attributed? These are few of the accuracy checklist. Then there is another rule of ensuring accuracy in your reporting, that what we call is basically assume nothing. Which means, as a journalist, when you go for a reporting, never go with assuming anything about anybody, that this person is very corrupt, no, or that organization is very corrupt, or that person is not very literate person, no. Never go with any preconceived notion, never assume anything. And this is a very important case study I would like to offer here. In America, in Northwestern University, Medill School of Journalism, what they are doing, they are teaching their journalism students with this particular skill of assuming nothing. What they are doing, one of the professor of Medill School of Journalism, he is inviting applications from all over the country in the United States, from those people who are facing death penalties or serious criminal charges, and they believe that they were, though all those charges were basically fabricated by the police or investigative agencies. And what they do, they invite such application from those people, and they select few of the cases for checking the information. And what they do, they start talking to the or verifying all those documents related to that case. Then they go to the police officer, the lawyers, and the witnesses. They also cross check them. Then they go to the jail and also talk to the accused person. And by doing this whole process and going through this whole process, and also cross-checking all those information initially published report in the newspapers and shown on the television channels, and how police has done the investigation, I would like to inform my viewers that in United States, they have at least half a dozen cases, they have saved the lives of the people who were in fact sentenced to death by the courts. In fact, courts have decided that they were culprit, and in those cases, because of their investigation, because they have not assumed anything, because police were saying or the courts have already sentenced them to death, they have checked every information, and through the information they established that this person was innocent, and even the higher courts accepted those investigation, and those persons were freed. So this shows that what you can do by going through each and every bit of information, cross-checking it, not assuming anything. And so, according to this skill, don't rely on official or news accounts. Get as close as you can to primary sources. Be systemic. Corroborate. Every information you should corroborate. Question. You should question each and every person. If you are doing a story where issues of life and death was involved, so you should cross check every person, verify every information, never assume anything, and by this way you can even save lives of people. And this is also ethical, and this is also proof of good journalism. Now we will discuss about fairness. As you all know, fairness or impartiality is very important in journalism. How to ensure fairness in your reporting? Treat all subjects of news coverage with respect and dignity, showing particularly compassion to victims of crimes and tragedy. Exercise special care when children are involved in a story, and give children greater privacy protection, which means if you are reporting about children, where children is involved in a story, you should not disclose the identity of your children, or sometimes if you are showing the picture of children, you should use mosaic or blur the face of your source. Respect the right to a fair trial. Even the accused person have a right to fair trial, and you should not try to intervene it. Corrections are published when errors are discovered or pointed out. Whenever, it's very important, whenever any error or anything which is wrong published, and because you are working in a newspaper or television channel, it is really very difficult. Despite your all efforts, there may be sometimes you may publish a wrong information, or there may be a error may be crept in. So in that case, if that error was pointed out by anyone in newsroom or by any of your viewer or listeners or your readers, you must immediately accept it and properly publish it. And you, as you know, if you are reading nowadays newspapers, the newspapers like Hindu, they are every day publishing correction column. On op-ed page, they are every day publishing that this much the error or the mistakes they have committed yesterday in yesterday newspaper or the other day's newspaper. Or same thing is started by other newspapers also, like Indian Express, Hindustan Times. They are regularly publishing these corrections in their newspaper because it enhances the credibility of your newspaper. Also, mind your language. Your language should be sober. You should not use language which is not in a good taste or which is not morally or ethically correct. Present diversity of expression, opinion and ideas in context, because in country like India, which is a multilingual, multi-religious, multi-cultural country, where if you are presenting diversity of your country, you should present it in proper context. Then balance, which is again very important in journalism, or which is again very important ethical norm. How to ensure balance in your reporting? Never exaggerate and maintain a sense of proportion. Nowadays in our television channels particularly, or in some newspapers also, we never see this sense of proportion. Everything is blown up. Everything is exaggerated. So what balance demands that you should always follow sense of proportion and never exaggerate anything and never say anything which is not there. Maintain balance between two or more competing views. Avoid emotional outbursts. Whenever you are reporting a story, never show your emotions. Never emotionally outburst on television channels or in newspapers. It is not good journalism. It is also not ethical. Avoid conflict of interest. Reputation of objectivity and accuracy of a news organization is very crucial. Independence of news organization and journalists must not be compromised and undermined by any outside influence, which means ensuring independence of journalists. Everyone involved in editorial decisions in a newsroom must be free from any inappropriate outside commitments. If you have any outside commitments, and even if your close relationship, so in news journalists should also avoid any conflict of interest related to their family members and close friends. Suppose, I would give you example. Suppose your wife is working in a company, suppose a pharmaceutical company, and while doing a story, you find that that pharmaceutical company is involved in producing certain drugs which is not according to the standards. What you will do? If you are reporting that story, your wife may face music in that company. If you are not reporting that story because of the conflict of interest, then you are deceiving or not serving your audiences or your readers. In that case, what to do? Which means you must avoid conflict of interest, which means there are many other ways you can do that story. You can pass that story to your colleague because that publication of that story is must, because you want to inform your audiences. But you also want to save the job of your wife. So in that case, you can pass that story to your colleague. But generally, it's important that whenever you are writing a story where your personal friends or close friends or your personal relatives are involved, you should not report that story, because clearly there is a conflict of interest. So avoid conflict of interest, because it shows that you are not independent while reporting that stories, because you have certain influences, certain outside influences, certain inappropriate influences on you. So these are few of the important journalistic norms and ethics. I would like to conclude here because we don't have much time, and I would also like to have some questions. Certain other things, if time allow, we will discuss next time. So Amrenji, now it's your time to ask questions.
Yeah, well, you talked about many things, corroborate the fact and cross-check the sources and all other things. But one thing which I have noticed last year when the cabinet was being formed in India, so the whole cabinet ministers were decided by the media, and then many of them were given the same portfolio which were conjectured on the screen.
Yeah.
So how do you see this?
Yes, certain times as a journalist you speculate that this and this leader may be included in cabinet, and certain times you may have your contacts in higher places in that party or the government, which may indicate that these leaders may be included in the cabinet. And in certain cases, as you also know, in particularly in the coalition era, where even the Prime Minister, despite the fact that he has privilege to select leaders or the member of parliaments to appoint as ministers, but in coalition era, as you know, every member of your coalition party, they nominate generally leaders for the cabinet ministership. And in that case, in certain times, yes, journalists are writing, and in certain cases, yes, there are certain issues. Particularly last year there was a case, and it is still not confirmed, but there was some conjectures that certain media houses have played a role in appointment of certain cabinet ministers. But we don't know, and we cannot speculate on conjectures.
Okay, fine. We will have more discussion on this topic also. And friend, I would like to announce here that the next week, 10th, 11th and 12th, we will have again a lecture on media ethics by the same resource person, Dr. Anand Pradhan. So don't forget to watch the lecture on media ethics. And today we are running short of the time, so I would like to thank all of you for watching the lecture. And on your behalf, I thank Dr. Anand Pradhan for giving such an insightful lecture on media ethics. Thank you very much.